Well, hello there, music fans. Welcome to another episode of Music is a Journey. I'm Peter Scove. Today's episode is a theme on Canadian women in the metal and hard rock scene mostly. Now, this is just a list of some of my favorites. I'm not naming everyone in my collection, and also staying mostly on hard rock and metal, so there are a lot of artists that I would ordinarily have loved to have mentioned which are not going to be mentioned in this one. One point, a couple of weeks back, I did a video on my 25 Canadian bands as it stands now, and in that list I included some of the artists I'm going to speak about today. So if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, well, it's because I am. Okay, so let's get started here. So first of all, as you can see, I'm wearing the t-shirt, a t-shirt I often like to wear when I'm talking about this band. I'm talking about Unleash the Archers and their lead vocalist, Britney Slayes. So here's the album. This is Abyss. This was released back in 2020. This album got them a Juno Award for Best Heavy Metal Album of the Year, but this album also did a lot more than that. Interestingly, the album was released in 2020, and the band had just wrapped up everything and were all ready to release it when the whole COVID-19 pandemic broke out, and they were suddenly wondering if they should even bother releasing the album if they couldn't tour it. They went ahead and released it anyway, and it went to great success for them. And one of the reasons for that, I think, is not only because, well, it's a fantastic album, also reaching the #1 spot or in the top 10 spot of many people's lists for top 10 albums in the metal scene of the year. Britney Slayes also landing in the top 10, top 5, and even #1 spot of various lists for best female vocalists in metal of the year. But also Britney Slayes herself took to social media to really help promote the band and promote the band's image. And one of the things I noticed she did was she offered interviews to people who do reaction videos to music videos, and there were some people out there who were reacting to songs by Unleash the Archers. So she got herself hooked up with them and offered to do live interviews with them, live streaming interviews. So that was one really big important thing. More recently, the band released their 6th album, Phantoma, which I have talked about at least on 3 different occasions now, so I'm not showing that one today. But they just came back from their tour, their beginning of the tour, where they went to New Zealand and Australia first, and the comments from fans on the fan page have been really heartwarming about what a friendly band they are, and always Britney seems to be at the front there. They have the band making a happy birthday video and singing to one of the fans, as well as other things the band went out of their way to reach out to fans. But Britney is really probably the one who is at the front at the most. So she is really an outstanding personality and a fabulous singer, and she does all of the songwriting for the band as well. These last few albums, she thinks up the conceptual theme, she thinks up the chapters for each story, which will become individual songs, and then she presents her ideas to the other band members, who then compose the music and offer her riffs or ideas, and then she decides how they will fit in with her idea, if the music is really suitable for what she has in mind for that particular chapter/song, or if it's better suited to keep that aside for something else and try again. So she's really a very big force in the band, both for promoting the band as the vocal and as the vocalist and songwriter. So that's Britney Slayes of Unleash the Archers. So next up is this lady. You probably will know her a lot more for the album that I have back up here, Metal Queen, from back in 1984. That's Lee Aaron, but here she is on Radio On, which was one of her more recent releases. I'm going to say it's one of her more recent releases. It's probably 2021 or 2022. I'm not exactly sure right now, and the type is always too small for me to see at this age. But here she is, Lee Aaron. Of course, she established a very big name for herself in Canada and especially in Europe during the 1980s. She had a very difficult time breaking into the US, largely because her record label, Attic Records, was always trying to negotiate some kind of super deal where their entire roster had to be accepted by an American label. And many American labels were interested, but they were interested in getting Lee Aaron. They didn't want the whole package that came along with it. So she never really broke in big in the United States. In the 1990s, she started her own label, but found it a little bit difficult to move along with her name in the new 90s scene of music, even though her musical style did change to suit that of the 90s. She later on pursued a jazz and blues direction, and then finally in 2016 returned to not a metal, but more of a hard rock or power rock, as she likes to put it. And there is a great variety. She has done 4 albums as like this so far, with a great variety of tunes. As well, there is a Christmas album. She recently released an album of covers tunes and a live album. So she's been doing really well for herself. Her band is excellent. And yeah, I've talked a lot about her in the last 6 months or so. So Lee Aaron, gotta be in here for my favorite female Canadians in the music scene. All right. So yeah, this mysterious album cover for an album called The Crowned. This is by Shea Amy Dval, and if you know her, it's probably because you would have heard her through Devin Townsend. She has appeared as a guest vocalist on a couple of Devin Townsend project albums. As well, she did a duet album together with Devin Townsend under the band name of Casualties of Cool, which recently celebrated its 10th anniversary. Shea has also done her own albums as a singer-songwriter, playing either clean electric or acoustic guitar. So when I said that most of the female artists I'd be mentioning in this video, when I said most of them were hard rock and metal, this is the one exception that is definitely not. She is exactly that, a female singer-songwriter with a guitar and a support band. However, for this album here, they decided to put her into what I'm going to call a dark pop direction. And the reason why I'm calling it dark pop is because it has a lot of the sonic elements of pop, but the atmosphere is often heavier, or there's just something about it that is not so cheery and fun. Even in the songs that actually are lighter and more cheery and fun, there's still this little bit of a heavy atmosphere in there behind somewhere. And by heavy atmosphere, I don't mean heavy guitars. I think this is a really excellent album. I probably would not have thought to buy an album such as this, but because it was the only CD I could get of Shea Amy's releases, it's the one I got, and I really do like it. If you take a look at Bandcamp, you can also check out her older material, which I would love to get on CD, but I might eventually have to just break down and buy the download, because she has a really fantastic voice. And I think she's a really interesting person to see in videos as well. Okay. So moving along, our next artist is actually not Canadian born. She was born in Alabama and grew up there, but I think when she was around 16, her mother divorced from her father and they moved to Victoria, British Columbia. So I'm talking about Courtney LaPlante. I guess she would have dual citizenship, and growing up in Victoria, British Columbia from the age of 16. I think it was 16 anyway. She later on became a singer and joined up with a band. Gosh, I always think I should check the guitarist's name, and I never do. But the guitarist of her band here, or their band, this is called Spirit Box. They are now a married couple, and they are the main forces behind Spirit Box. I guess the music writer and songwriter. Courtney LaPlante's lead vocals are really fantastic in my opinion, because once again, we have someone who can sing really like a pop diva. But again, this dark pop atmosphere married to modern day metal sound. So she has, when she sings clean vocals, it is really a beautiful voice that she has, but she also really packs in the punch for the power, rough, harsh vocals. And there are some videos of her doing a vocal run through, first take of her band's songs, and she's amazing. Based on those, I decided I had to get this album. And this album was also, I think it was nominated for a Juno Award. This, by the way, is called, what the heck is it called? It's called Eternal Blue. It was nominated for a Juno Award, and I don't remember if it was nominated for a Grammy or it won a Grammy. But anyway, Spirit Box with Courtney LaPlante, fabulous singer. I will try to get a hold of one of their other albums. You can find lots of videos of Spirit Box and Courtney LaPlante, and people, vocal coaches, reacting to Courtney LaPlante on YouTube. So here is another band I've talked about a lot recently. In fact, I did a band history video about them last year after the release of their 5th album. This is Blood Ceremony, and it is Alia O'Brien that I want to talk about here. Yes, I've talked about her before, but why the heck not? She fits the theme of this video very nicely. So she is the band's vocalist. She is also the band's flautist and keyboardist. And she originally was asked to appear as a guest on some recordings of the band back in the day because Sean Kennedy, who is the guitarist, was friends with her, and she had introduced him to Jethro Tull, and he thought the idea of flute along with this early 70s kind of stoner rock sound was really cool, and he asked her to come in and play flute on maybe a couple of tracks. There were some demos they were recording, and she brought along her Farfisa organ, and before the sessions were done, they realized that she really should be in the band. So she joined as a flautist and keyboard player. However, sometime shortly after, their lead vocalist decided she wanted to go to India. And so the vocal spot was open, and Alia O'Brien took over that as well. So she is what we call a triple threat, vocals, flute, and keyboards in the band, Blood Ceremony, and I think her voice is exactly suitable to the type of music that Blood Ceremony plays, which is this kind of late 60s, early 70s, heavy psychedelic rock, and with themes, a lot of lyrical themes about witchcraft and that sort of thing. So really, really cool stuff. One of my top 10 favorite bands. So next up we have Lutharo. This is their album Chasing Euphoria, which just came out around March or April of this year. This is their second full-length album. They also had 2 EPs released. I have the EPs. I don't have their first album. I kept thinking to get it, and by the time I decided I'm going to get it, this album came out. So I bought this one instead. So the vocalist we're looking at here, this is Christa Shipperbottom, and this is a symphonic... what would you call them? So they do play very symphonically, sometimes with orchestration in the background, very technically as well. Christa's voice, she can do either clean vocals or the harsh vocals. So it is a very heavy and aggressive style of metal, but with that symphonic background. So yeah, I really like the sound of Christa's voice, and I like watching her in the videos, but more recently, I saw an interview with her on Belgian Jasper's channel, and there she was without the makeup and just a toque on, and I thought she was just so sweet. I watched that video of her doing the interview there, and everything she said, I just thought, wow, what a sweet, nice girl. I really like her. So she moved up a couple of notches in my preference. But yeah, she does sound fantastic, and I do love a girl who can sing clean vocals and as well as harsh vocals. And the one thing I'm going to say I'm kind of missing is, I think it's the last track here near the end, she actually hit some really high notes, and I always love that. I always love the high notes on the female voice, and I would like to hear that a little bit more. So Christa, maybe we'll be hearing more from you in that area, or maybe I just haven't listened to the album well enough. Maybe I should buy the last album too. So here we go. I just talked about these guys really recently, these gals. This is Kittie and their latest album Fire, just released at the end of June. I did a whole deep dive into the band's history, talking about, yeah, their history and all their albums. And for here, I'm going to talk about lead vocalist and guitarist Morgan Lander. Got no photo of her, but you know, as we're going along, I'm throwing up photos here, so there she is. And Morgan, I think, has just become one of the best. Actually, early on, she developed it, but she's one of the best harsh vocalists in metal music, in my opinion. Granted, there are lots and lots of bands out there, entirely female bands, as Kittie is, as well as bands just with female lead vocalists, and many great harsh vocalists, as well as those who can do both clean and harsh vocals. So, you know, perhaps Morgan Lander might not be in the top 10 on everybody's lists, but she is, so far, she's my favorite for the harsh vocal style. Of course, I haven't actually listened to Arch Enemy very much, so perhaps, you know, maybe Alisa Whiteglass might actually be superior. I don't know. Perhaps she is. But anyway, this is Kittie, Morgan Lander, great vocalist, and very cool guitarist, riff writer as well. Really been loving Kittie's music here these last few months. Alright, so I mentioned this band last year in a video, Juliet Ruin, and I even contacted the band on Bandcamp and asked if I could feature a bit of their music. So yeah, last year's video featured a bit of the music of Juliet Ruin. And once again, we're looking at an alternative metal band, but with a female vocalist who can sing the really harsh vocals as well as really nice, popish, clean vocals. So the vocalist here is Jess Fleming, and this band I think is from Edmonton, Alberta, if I remember correctly. And Jess, in an interview I read with her, maybe it was a couple of years old now, but I read it last year, she was saying about how on their first album here, this is Old Stardust, Love and Chaos. That's right, Old Stardust, Love and Chaos. She was saying that between this album and their more recent EP, which is actually already a few years old now too, Dark Waters, that she had done more work on her harsh vocals. And on this album, the harsh vocals are shared between her and I think at least one of the male members. But from Dark Waters, she has taken over the role of the both clean and harsh vocalist solely. So that is Jess Fleming from Juliet Ruin. Okay. Okay, so there are quite a few other female vocalists in the metal scene in Canada I could mention, but I'd like to move along because I'm trying to keep the list to 12 people, although the last one is kind of a pair. But moving along to musicians now, so we're back at Kittie again. And yeah, everyone in the band is a musician. We've got 2 guitarists, we've got drummer, we've got bass. But I'd like to particularly point out Tara McLoud. Where are you, Tara? She's over there. Tara McLoud, who joined the band back around 2005, 2006, and has remained the guitarist and actually even lead guitarist for Kittie. Kittie is not a band that features a lot of lead guitar work, but when they do, Tara's on the job. Now, Tara also plays in a country western band, all women's country western band called Nice Horse out of Alberta. As well, she plays with Lisa Whitegla's sister, Jasmine, in a band project that she has going. And there were at least 2 other bands. I saw her in an interview talking about her work. There are at least 2 other bands that she also plays in or has played in. So she's quite a versatile musician, playing in a very heavy metal band here, as well as country western, as well as experimental, as well as more, I think, more of a pop rock, alternative pop flavored band. So she does quite a bit of stuff. And also, just again, she's one of those people, when I watch her in interviews, I think I really want to be friends with her. She just seems so cool. So, well, actually, I think everybody in Kittie is cool. I like them all. But Tara is the one I feel like I could actually be friends with. I think she's great. So now we're going to move on to Car Chaos, a symphonic death metal band from Montreal. They have only 2 albums, and I think this one was also nominated for a Juno Award some years back. This is Children of the Void. Actually, Morgan Lander of Kittie sang as a guest on here and later on joined the band and recorded, according to an interview I heard, she recorded an album with them, but it has of yet to be released. And since 2021, she's been back with Kittie. So who I want to talk about on here is the drummer, Justine. It looks like a French name, so I'm going to say Ethier. Justine Ethier, whose nickname is Juice. She is the drummer on this album. She is the drummer for Car Chaos. But actually, as I was checking out some details about her today, I found she is also the drummer of Blackguard. And Blackguard actually formed way back in 2001. So she and the guitarist formed the band Blackguard. And it originally went under another name, which I have now forgotten. However, their second album, they changed the name to Blackguard, and the album's title is the name of the previous band name. And I've also found that that CD is available in very good condition for a very reasonable price on a flea market. I know the purchasing division is supposed to be shut down for now, but it sure is tempting. For 666 yen, that's a really good price. So anyway, Justine Ethier, drummer of Car Chaos and Blackguard. So here's another band I featured last year, and it's very hard to see this, but this is Ye Goat Herd Gods, which is another metal band out of Alberta. And all the lyrics and music are written by Jeannie Keebler. So she is the guitarist for the band and the lyricist. She's not the vocalist. Actually, I was exchanging a few messages with the vocalist, who is male. Now, that was last year, so I'm sorry, sir. I've forgotten your name, but he also sings in a couple of other bands as well. But yeah, Jeannie Keebler of Ye Goat Herd Gods, writing all the music and lyrics, and there are some really cool tracks on here. I actually bought this album because I wanted to do an A to Z video of Canadian bands, and I was missing Y. I was missing J and Y, and that's why I got Juliet Ruin and Ye Goat Herd Gods together at the same time. But there you go, so Jeannie Keebler, guitarist and lyricist. Okay, so the last one. I don't have a CD because they don't actually have any CDs. All their music is download only, but I'm talking about Wasted Heretics out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And Wasted Heretics have a double female hit in the rhythm section. We've got Carly Brown on drums, picture here, and we've got Alex Frayne on bass guitar, picture here. And there's not a lot of stuff to see on YouTube for Wasted Heretics, but there is a playthrough with Alex Frayne and one of the guitarists playing through one of their songs. Now, it is this extreme technical death metal, fingers going everywhere on the fretboard all the time, and two different styles of harsh vocals. One, the more deeper guttural one, the style, and another one is this kind of more squished frog sound, like not really everyone's cup of tea, I'm sure, but they are interesting, and I certainly like the music. That's one of the styles I like, and I like watching the video because it's, here she is, here's Alex playing the bass in that video, as well as, you know, the other guy anyway. And they have this nice little bass break section where you can watch her fingers moving on the strings, so that's pretty cool. So that is Wasted Heretics out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and that is a list of, well, basically 12 plus one, because the last one, Wasted Heretics, is the 12th one, but there are two. And that's it. Again, there are lots of other great female artists in Canada I could have mentioned, as well as non-metal artists. Certainly I could make another video just on those alone. I really debated whether I should perhaps also mention some of my favorite female artists in other countries, but I'm going to keep it exclusively Canadian this time, and we'll talk about those other artists in another video, or in other videos. So that's it. Thanks for watching, people, and see you again in another video sometime. It's a really humid day today. Okay, bye.